Okay, I'm sorry for the late update. I was out of the office for the last 2 days now, and I'll be out for half of a Wednesday. But I just wanted to put this update out just so that you know what's going on here in the office. So we'll start off with the HL30, the possibility of an HL30. So it is Tuesday. It's February 27th, 2018. It is about 7:15 p.m. New York time, and we're just looking at the majors. So after today's relatively strong move here, we're going to go to the 4 hour and the daily time frame for each one of these. But there was a breakout here on the dollar yen, which would probably continue, and I most likely won't trade an HL30. So I'm looking at that right here. I most likely won't trade an HL30 here at this level because of the move on the dollar yen yesterday. There was a breakout trade yesterday to the upside. You probably saw that, and that was on the 1 hour time frame. So I'd rather not trade against that here. It might set up, the dollar yen, it might set up I'll open this up one click here so you can see what I'm talking about. It might set up an HL30 right around here, and it might look confirmed. And it is possible that it could work. It could drop down 20 pips, but very often when I see trades like that, they don't usually go down the 20 pips, even though you think it might. And you think 20 pips, well, that's nothing, compared to the move that it made yesterday. 20 pips is relatively small. Why not go ahead and try it? And then it doesn't work. It only goes down like 12, 13 pips, turns around and goes back up. So there was a previous continuation breakout trade in in an upward direction, and it has not fulfilled that take profit level. It might not, but it hasn't yet. So usually in a situation like that, I won't trade against it. It has the continuation breakout trade. It did hit its first scaling out take profit level. But again, when I see something like that, we're going to go ahead and go to the daily charts in just a minute, and I'll show you. When I see a strong daily candle like that, I really don't want to trade against it. So I'm going to be really careful here. I'm going to watch it. I'd rather trade a T2 pattern or a solid Tech 1 trade, meaning that I'm not just going to be looking for that 20 pip range, I'm sorry, the 10 pip range or anything like that to trade an HL30. I'm going to be looking for something that I can confirm both on the 30-minute and the 1 hour chart as well. That's usually what I do with the Tech 1 trade. So the dollar Swiss, if the dollar yen, let's go back to the dollar yen. If the dollar yen continues higher, this could probably move a little faster because of the activity and the volume and the participation that was involved in this trade yesterday towards the end of the day. And that's why I think that there's going to be a little more follow through with this one. And then let's just, for example, and we're just sort of thinking forward. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I'm just, playing out a few scenarios here. The dollar Swiss might end up reaching that resistance from yesterday a little bit later, like many hours later, maybe towards the late London or New York session, and then it might create an HL30 here. So it's something to keep an eye on, meaning that if I'm not too sure about trading the dollar yen, which is what we're looking at right now, I know I keep going back and forth between the dollar yen and the dollar Swiss, but if I'm not too sure about trading an HL30 and it continues on higher as a result of that breakout yesterday to the upside, and we don't jump back in on this one, on the dollar yen, then maybe, now I'm looking at the dollar Swiss, the safest bet would be to just sit here and watch the dollar Swiss because it might react, let's just say, for example, with some economic data out of the US tomorrow, and it might be a safer trade. I'm not saying for sure that it's going to. I'm just saying that in situations like that where I'm not too sure about trading against a strong move from the previous day and it looks like there's going to be more momentum the way it looks like right now in the dollar yen, then if we've already missed that one, then maybe we can watch this one and it might give us a better opportunity. Now, let's go to the pound dollar. The same thing might happen here with the pound dollar. It might approach that support from yesterday later, let's say in the London or New York session, and it might print an HL30 there, which would be a safer opportunity to sit there and watch some of these, like the dollar Swiss or the dollar yen, the pound, the dollar Swiss or the pound dollar. It might be a safer opportunity to watch a couple of these. I'm watching another chart and some news pop up right now on another screen. I'm sorry about that if I seem distracted. The euro dollar, this one obviously had a move that was somewhat similar to what we saw in the dollar yen, where there was a lot of strength. So the euro dollar is what we're looking at now, and it's sitting here at this support level. I was watching this possible HL30 here. It did set up, and it printed an HL30 there right after the rollover. But again, with a strong, I'm going to switch to the daily time frame. You really can't see it there. With a strong daily candle like that, I usually don't want to trade against something like that. And it actually closed below that price swing low here on the daily time frame. But I'll show you that in just a moment here. I'm sticking with the 30-minute chart because I want you to see what I'm doing. So in a situation like this, I don't want to trade against a big trending move like that. I need some kind of a trend the previous day, but it would be better to trade in the direction of the overall trend. And that's not really what we're seeing here. I'm going to show you the dollar chart as well in a moment. So I'm not going to, I think I'm going to pass on the HL30s here on the euro dollar. I really don't want to trade against that. So let's take a look at the larger time frames now. We're going to go to the euro dollar now. Take a look at the daily. And this is what I'm talking about. It closed below a price swing low from last week. That low right there, that was on February 22nd. However, we have been watching this consolidation range here on the daily time frame for the euro dollar for a while now. And if you go back to some of my, if you still have them, if you look at the updates and you're following along with the way I'm keeping up and keeping track with the changes here in the euro dollar daily time frame, this really hasn't moved. I mean, I talked about this a while back. So this was a pretty significant resistance level in here. You can see where it's approached that resistance level at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, maybe even 5 times with that 5th candle there. So this is a pretty significant price swing high, in my opinion. No candles closed above that level. And as far as that pullback, when it retraced and came back down, no candles have closed below that support level. Now, it might happen tomorrow, or actually, technically, I guess you could say today. We are in the start of the new day, which is Wednesday right now. The 5 p.m. rollover has already occurred. So here in the United States. So it could happen. However, I'm going to keep an eye on a bounce. Now, if I'm wrong and it doesn't close below that support level for a while, and it does bounce, then again, I would rather not trade an HL30 because an HL30 with a small stop like that, like a 20 pip stop, it might stop out quickly. Looking for the Tech 1 trade on both the 30-minute and the 1-hour time frame to trade a bounce off of this support level on the euro dollar, in my opinion, would be better, and it might set up during some London or New York economic data, which would then be a better qualified trade because I can see the volume, I can see the direction, and I can see the real reason why it would be bouncing off of that support level. Let's say, for example, if it was supported with some economic data. So that's what I would prefer to do. I would prefer to just skip the HL30s. Even though they might work, I would prefer to skip those and not trade them because of what I'm seeing here. In a situation like this, I mean, sometimes when we see a strong bearish move like this and support is really close, the very next candle ends up printing another bearish candle that closes below that support level and it prints that continuation breakout trade. It could. And I'll show you why I'm looking at this, because this is sort of lining up in the same way, just in the opposite direction with the dollar index. Let's take a look at the dollar index here. So if we take a look at the dollar index, this is the daily time frame for just the US dollar. The same thing in the opposite direction is setting up here. Again, I don't know if it's going to pull away from resistance. It very well could, but it could also, after yesterday's strong bullish candle, the dollar could eventually close above that level there and then continue moving higher. We've got that W bottom pattern forming here. Everything is confirmed. We're just waiting for the breakout. I don't think that's set up exactly on the number there, but it's close. So we've got, let's go ahead and identify that support low. This is really, really similar to what we saw in the euro dollar, just in the opposite direction. So we've got that low. No candles have closed below that low. That was back on January 25th. And then we've seen retests several different times here. And then we've got that resistance level. So this is that W bottom. This is, if I was looking at a 1-hour time frame, and this was a 1-hour time frame for, let's say, for example, the euro dollar or the pound dollar. If this was my consolidation range and this was what I was looking at, I would be waiting for a candle to close above that resistance point with, let's say, some volume, participation, economic data, whatever the case is, and then look at these indicators, waiting for that continuation breakout trade to trade it back up again. It hasn't happened yet, and it might happen eventually. Let's say that tomorrow is just a day where it retraces, and then the next day, Thursday, it goes sideways, and then Friday it continues underneath this support or this resistance level, and then next week it might break out and then start printing that trending move to the upside. That is also a possibility. I really don't know, but when it comes to trading these HL30s, and I'm going to go back over here to the HL30 again. When it comes to trading the HL30s, at some of these major support resistance levels. Let's take a look at the euro dollar. This is the euro dollar. They look good, but using such a small stop, they could just flip right over and retest support one more time and go a little bit further, and you get stopped out right away. So there's no reason to grind away at the account. In my opinion, again, in a situation like this, with these strong daily candles and things setting up the way I showed you, like the possibility of a breakout and a continued move here in the dollar index to the upside, if that's what I'm looking at, I don't know when that's going to happen. Obviously, news is going to support something like that. But if I'm going to be looking for a better, safer trade, then maybe I'll just skip and not trade these HL30s, even if they work, and then wait for it to sort of hang around the support level, and then print that strong Tech 1 trade during the US session where there's more participation, more volume, more fluid movement after the signal, and I can clearly see it, and it's less likely to retrace, and then it'll move to hit those targets. Something to consider. It's just, it is a possibility. It happens. I just don't know if it's going to play out that way. The other possibility is that I could be totally wrong and the HL30s might work just fine. If that's the case, that's okay, I guess. I'll be looking for another reversal at one point or another. Somewhere I'm going to get a signal. If that happens here with the euro dollar and the HL30 works just fine and it moves up and hits 20 or even 40 points, I can still wait for an opportunity to trade this one, the pound dollar. I'll wait either for the Tech 1 trade or wait for the HL30 to develop at a time, again, at a time when there's more participation and the movement is stronger. It's more consistent, and I'm less likely to sit for 8-9 hours watching it go sideways when there's not a whole lot of activity and it's just bouncing around getting really close to that 20 pip stop loss, and I'm worried about it, right? I'd rather not do something like that. I'd rather just simply wait if I can see that it looks a little bit confusing here. Wait for a time when there's going to be more participation and more movement. And then, of course, the same thing. We could do the same thing here with the dollar Swiss. This is the dollar Swiss. It might give us a better opportunity, or the better opportunities might develop closer to the New York session. Bitcoin dollar daily time frame, uh, daily chart again. It's still in. I mean, at this point, I'm really not too sure. I don't think that it's not going to immediately roll back down and take out that price swing low from a few days ago. I'm not. I'm not convinced that it's not going to continue and move and approach to that 13,000 level just yet. Obviously, I will have much more confirmation when a candle closes above that price swing high here from the 20th, February 20th. But until then, when I say I'm not sure, it's that because I keep getting the question, do I think it's going to drop down towards that and take out the 5190 or 5180 area from a while back, or I believe it was 5180. How low did that go? Yeah, 5120, 5116 on this chart. So I keep getting the question, do I think it's going to go lower and should we sell it, or do I think it's going to go up towards that 13,000 level? Actually, 12,880 was the price marker here. And I'm not convinced that it's not going to go towards the 12,800 level just yet. I could change my mind tomorrow. Tomorrow could be a strong bearish day, and it might drop down and close below that support low here from, again, the 25th of February. That is a possibility. But until that happens, I'm not changing my opinion. I still think that it could float right back up towards that 13,000. I just don't know how long that's going to take. This one obviously could move sideways inside of this consolidation range for the next 2 weeks. It happens. We watched that with the with some of the yen crosses. I'm still waiting for continuation breakout trades on the pound yen, and it's just going to take some time. Sometimes it'll be a week or two, and then we get that breakout, and then there is our solid trade that we really don't have to worry about because we've got confirmation, across the board. Everything lines up. We can see why. We see the data. We see the information. We see the reason why, and there's nothing to worry about that trade. In the meantime, let's just continue to look at these others and look for an opportunity to trade some of the better opportunities. Like, keep an eye on the dollar index here. And now sort of the shift is going to go back towards Forex. Sometimes we get that lull or, that quiet phase in Forex and nothing is really happening. And then you get some index futures, or there's something will happen there with the stock market. Something will happen with commodities futures, or the Bitcoin, and everybody changes their shift and their focus, and then there's a lot of activity over there, and then everybody comes right back over to Forex. So I think that eventually when we get this break above, keep an eye on the dollar. Keep an eye on the dollar index. This is a daily time frame. Keep an eye on that high. Watch what's going to happen. Eventually, if it does close above that, a daily candle, and we get confirmation, solid confirmation with these indicators as if it was a continuation breakout trade, then keep an eye on it, because that's really going to help us support the next move and the next overall trending move on FX